Hi, YouTube. Um, as the saying goes, with regards to libertarianism, it typically takes 6 months to convert from Minarchism to Anarchism. And just a brief explanation of what Minarchism and Anarchism are. Minarchism is a belief in minimal government. Anarchism is a belief in no government. Anarchy means and without archy rules, or rulers rather, so it means without rulers. But what I was interested in was the uh, tipping points from minarchism to anarchism. Some people may have just one good reason why they converted from minarchism to anarchism, and some people maybe they have a lot more reasons. But when I was thinking about it, I came up with about 3 reasons for myself as to why I converted to the dark side. Some refer to anarchism as being the logical conclusion to libertarianism, and it's interchangeable with voluntarism or voluntarism, which is basically just about voluntary interactions and transactions. I don't know why I look so crooked. Um, so, for me, there wasn't any one tipping point, and there wasn't a day where I was a minarchist and then I just decided now I'm an anarchist. It was kind of like a glob, a material of globby stuff sitting on a fence, and like starts to fall over on one side, the anarchy side, but like there's still globby stuff that has to come down, and it's uh, this gradual process of intellectually transforming yourself or getting to that logical conclusion. So for me, one of the problems I had with anarchy as a minarchist was that, okay, so protection would be totally privatized. Like, there's a sense in which it is privatized now. You can have alarm systems set up in your home. You can buy weapons, guns. You can set up traps in your home. And you can even, work with your community to do kind of like a neighborhood watch program. So, but in a free society or in an anarchist society, you would have total private protection. And when I thought about this, so people can get their own protection agents if they have the money. And without taxes, we would presume they would have the money. Without taxes, without the Federal Reserve System depleting or depreciating the value of the dollar, and an ability to trade with whatever commodities work in the market, the assumption is that people would have the money to buy protection from private protection agencies. And so any conflicts or disputes between two people or two groups of people would be settled in this way. Now, my problem with this was that, okay, but what about children? They can't just, if there's a situation of child abuse, the child can't just hire a protection agent and say, well, I would like to accuse my parents of neglect or abuse. I mean, unless the child has a way to make money, and maybe there would be ways in a free society, more options for children to do that, but My understanding is that they would be less likely to get those services. And so I thought that that was a conundrum. Like, well, what are children supposed to do? And maybe this isn't really a point that other libertarians think about, but it was something that bothered me. And what I realized, and this is one of the tipping points, is that the state doesn't protect children any better than a free society would. Because we have a state, and we have a lot of instances of child abuse and child neglect. I thought about that. I was like, most of the people I know have suffered some form of parental neglect or abuse, myself included. And that's scary. We have a state, we have a federal police force, we have a monopoly on national defense, or on protection in a way, and we have a scary amount of abuse. And it took a couple of times of thinking about that, but eventually I realized, well, who really helps children now? Not the state. There's no, there aren't policemen in every home making sure that children aren't being abused. And then I realized, well, maybe the state causes it or contributes to it. And that's a whole other talking point or can of worms itself. But so I just I realized that communities and people around children are the ones who solve these problems. It's people that they know. It's localized cooperation. And that's what we want in a free society. We want more localized cooperation and conflict resolution. Because when you go to the state, it's less efficient, it's less local, and there's just a lot more hullabaloo or whatever to deal with. So there's that. Then there was the point, the second tipping point was that a minarchist society of minimal government services, no matter how few those government services are, it's still not a free market. So if you're a libertarian and you believe in libertarianism because of the free market, you like free market principles, you're not being a consistent libertarian if you're a minarchist and you want some government services. The reason is because government, whenever it controls certain resources or services or goods, it has a monopoly on those. You can't just compete with, like, national defense. Excuse me. And I'm not really sure what other services minarchists would want. I think it was national defense, lawmakers and law enforcers, and then everything else would be free market. But you wouldn't have total free market capitalism unless you had total abolition of government and statism. It's just the consistency of it. So if you're a minarchist and you're okay with that, well, yeah, I believe in about 90% of a free market, fine. But you can't be an advocate of free market capitalism truly if you want some monopoly on some services, if you want a certain amount of government control over certain services. So that was tipping point number 2. I don't know if they went in that order, but that was another tipping point. And then the third one. And this one is, in my opinion, the most important one. And that is that government, any amount of government, any kind of government you have, imposes itself on its people. Nobody asked me when I was born, or at any point in my life, if I wanted to be ruled by somebody else. Nobody asked me. There's no social contract. I didn't sign anything. Nobody asked me anything. So, if I was born in North Korea, nobody would have asked me anything there either. And I would be living under an extremely authoritarian government and not have nearly as many liberties as I do in the United States. But even in the United States, it's not as free as it could be. And we're losing more civil liberties. It's kind of becoming a little bit Orwellian with the whole NSA and surveillance and stuff like that. So, merely by being born in a certain area was no indication that I consented to the governance in that area. These services that government provides, whether you like them or not, you didn't really directly ask for them. Even if you vote and your guy wins, there's probably going to be services that he provides, services that you don't agree with. So, on the one hand, well, you like Obama's healthcare plan, but do you like his extended Patriot Act? Do you like the NSA? Do you like the provision in NDAA where he can indefinitely detain American citizens? Do you like the continuation of the war on terror? Even though he doesn't call it that anymore, that's what it is. It didn't change just because he changed the name of it after President Bush. It's still the same story in the Middle East. And it's just dragging on, like Vietnam. It's just dragging on. And do you like the drug war? Do you like pot being handled at the state level when the federal government could really just decriminalize it nationally? Do you like all of these things? Probably not. There's probably something that the Obama administration has implemented that you don't agree with. So you get certain services at the expense of other people. And not only that, but any politician that you vote for gets to impose all of his policies on people that did not vote for that politician and did not want those policies or those services. So, the anarcho-capitalist is the only person, to my knowledge, the only person who sees the imposition of ideas about morality as being wrong. It doesn't mean that we're moral relativists, because we're not. It means that we think that a central authority in no way efficiently handles problems in society, and um, um, nor do they do it in a principled manner. I think there was one more point, not a tipping point, but a point about imposing ideas. Right, so any other person, any minarchist, Democrat, Republican, centrist, whatever, all these other people have to admit that they believe in a system that has to impose ideas about morality on other people. Um, hmm. If you're okay with that, that's fine. At least be aware of what you believe in, because a lot of liberals take a position of, with regards to civil liberties, well, if you don't want an abortion, if you don't like gay marriage, then don't get one. Things like that. And it's sort of like, you can do whatever you want with your civil liberties, just don't impose on me. Yet, they believe in these things, and then they vote for politicians. That's hypocritical. Because you can say whatever you want about not wanting to impose your idea about uh, heterosexual couples or religion or abortion. You can say, well, I'm not imposing anything on anyone. But as soon as you vote, you do. Assuming that the vote counts. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I stopped caring when I converted to anarchism, um, as to whether or not votes actually are factored in, or whether, um, it's kind of like a thing that we don't really have control over. I guess the other thing to say about government imposing ideas about morality is that um, it makes it difficult to be heard. Because of the monopoly on force and certain services, you have a centralized authority all the way in Washington, D.C. So you might say, well, it's a democracy and you can make changes, you just gotta contact your senator and do this and that. But are you really willing to concede that it's that simple to make change? I mean, just look at what's going on in Egypt. Egypt ousted, I'm wanting to say it was Mubarak, and then they put in this guy, I'm wanting to say it's Mosny or something like that. It starts with an M, I think. And they didn't like him either. They protested in June. There was this big thing going on there, and then they gave him recently an ultimatum to leave. So they got rid of one president, and another was instituted. I don't know if the Egyptians put him in. I think maybe the UN put him in or something. Um, and it's the problem's happening all over again. It's not a matter of, oh, well, if we just vote in the right person, we'll see good results. That's not how it happens. Oh, and the point that I wanted to make about government services is that some people are like, well, government provides these services, so we should support government. Like, we need, just trying to think of the things people come up with that we need. We need federally regulated and maintained roads. We need health care, like Medicare and Medicaid. We need national defense and things like that. To me, this is the equivalent of saying that because your parents give you certain things, that you should love them. Well, what if your parents are abusive? What if you're an adult and you don't need parents? Then it doesn't matter what nice things your parents give you or how necessary you think those things are. If you're an adult, why can't you do these things on your own? Why don't you have the freedoms you deserve? So, those are the 3 tipping points. I guess just to kind of like recap them briefly. The first was that government doesn't handle problems such as, child abuse or child neglect any better than a free society would. And if anything, a free society would handle it a lot better. Just because people would have money and a means to trade with each other in the free market, and they could figure out these things on their own. They wouldn't have a percentage of their paycheck taken away from them to where like they could have spent that money elsewhere. And when you open up free trade and you allow voluntary interactions to take place, I think you'll find that people are going to be a lot friendlier. So there's that. The second one is that in a minarchist society, minimal government still kind of isn't a free market. You may have more of a free market than what we have now, but you're still going to have some semblance of you're still going to have kind of an inconsistency there. It wouldn't be a totally free market if you had government owning certain resources in a way that other firms or people couldn't compete with that. And then the third point is that government in any size or form is an institution that imposes itself upon the people it rules over. And anarcho-capitalists are the only people who really oppose that. So, yeah, I would be interested to know if there are any other anarcho-capitalists that just happen to be watching this video, what your tipping points were, if you had multiple points, if they were the same as mine, and if you're not an anarcho-capitalist, maybe you're a minarchist considering tipping over. Any comments or questions that you have would certainly be appreciated. Yeah, I think that's it. I hope that this was not too rambly of a video, and